that lie.
With all of the stuff regarding Parlo taking place at the moment, I want to express my reasoning for why I don't like Parlo that don't include already obvious and public reasons such as what Gwamgo covered in his video. This video will be an exposed video that brings new information to the table that's not yet known to the public. Parlo is even worse than one can imagine him to be, and if you had any positive image of him after all that's been said and done before, then that image of him will shatter after you watch this video. I've gone through thick and thin to bring you this, from spending hours researching and looking through over 11,000 individual messages to being backed up by Gwamgo on Twitter and having a one-on-one call with him. I've done it all. A notable thing to mention right now is also Parlo's bullshit response to me in private when I confronted him on the fucked up shit he's done. The fucked up shit list includes him having a rape fetish, making racist remarks and being complicit with racism and being very Islamophobic. This and more will be covered and proven extensively. But yeah, that's a short preamble to what you're gonna watch right now, so let's get on with the video. This section is a bit serious. Trigger warnings are on screen. I don't even know how to smoothly transition into this segment, so I'll just say it bluntly. Parlo has a rape fetish. I'm going to explain how I found all of this out in the form of a story of events. At the start of July, somebody DM'd me about a new document made on Parlo. I was made aware of it beforehand and knew that it was full of untrue baloney about the dupe situation, but the revisit I made of it resulted in me stumbling upon a pretty convincing looking screenshot of Parlo saying he has a CNC fetish. If you're not aware of what a CNC fetish is, it's disgusting. In short, the CNC acronym stands for consensual non-consent, which by the name itself you can pretty quickly disclose that it fetishizes. Essentially, it's a rape fetish. At the time of me stumbling upon that screenshot, I was supposed to help Parlo with some video he was making. Now, I wasn't sure of the validity of the CNC thing since Parlo had not yet responded to the document at the time, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to help on this Parlo video or not. I brought this up to Arham, his server moderator, who was kind of the middleman for the information I was gonna send to Parlo, and he told me that he was gonna address the document soon in an upcoming video. So I waited. And for context further on, I was not waiting on this alone. I had already talked about my concerns regarding this with another bigger YouTuber. I will not say their name because they don't want to be publicly involved in this, and I also do not want them to be. I'll just be referring to them as a fellow YouTuber. When Parlo's response video came out, I was amongst the first to watch it. I checked to see if the fetish stuff was addressed, and to my surprise it was not. So I hit up Arham once again. I explained my concern of it not being addressed since the video was meant to be a full debunking of the document, and I also mentioned that I wasn't the only one who felt that way, citing the fellow YouTuber as an example who was mutuals with Parlo on Twitter at the time. I did this in hopes of having a bigger chance to warrant a response from Parlo. At the end of our conversation, Arham let me know that he DM'd Parlo about the matter. I was then left in the dark regarding this situation for 3.5 days while DMing Arham daily regarding any updates. Finally though, on the 22nd of July, something happened. At 4 AM, Arham added me and the fellow YouTuber to a group chat with Parlo. Obviously, I was asleep, so the fellow YouTuber kind of took the wheel there. And the first thing straight off the bat, the screenshot was actually real. Parlo confirmed it and, responded to it accordingly to that. And what was his response? He just lied in our faces, straight up. And just kudos to the way that he did it, because he initially fooled both of us, and it was me re-reviewing the whole thing over again a few weeks later when I realized what he had done. He initially claimed that the reason you see him saying that he has a CNC fetish in this screenshot is because he didn't know what the phrase meant and that it was a quote-unquote on-the-spot claim he made. But later in the conversation, he told us a different story, claiming he miscoined the term back when he was 17. For context, Parlo was 19 when he sent the CNC message, so that would mean he was miscoining the term for up to more than 2 years, which I find hard to believe. But the bigger thing to point out here is that the two claims he made are mutually exclusive. He had two conflicting claims he gave us. If he already had a long-term established definition, it couldn't have been a spontaneous mistake he made in the moment, aka an on-the-spot statement. And to no surprise, it turns out that he didn't miscoin the phrase, as is gonna be proven soon, but we'll get to that later. Right now, I want to give you his response to the timeline of it happening. He then tells us he never had the intention of simulating with dupe. Out of nowhere, he cites an example, and what he brings up as evidence is at first glance kind of convincing because of the way he highlighted certain messages out the bunch. But let's move those highlights aside so you get the actual picture here. Starting off, Dupe tells Parlo he is a somnophile. If you don't know what that means, don't fret, because Parlo didn't know either and asked Dupe what that meant. Dupe explains how he wants to simulate sleep, stating that it's when you take advantage of someone when they're asleep.
P.S. Of course, consent is present because it's a simulation of, but the issue I'm highlighting here is being simulated / fetishized. It fetishizes tries to swoop. That's my problem with it. Just want to make that clear because that's my whole point with the segment and I do not want to be misconstrued.
Parlo responds to that with, "Oh yeah, that's fine with me." That was his response to Dupe saying he is a somnophile and that he wants to simulate sleep. It's not over yet though. Parlo goes on further. In the second screenshot of the two he sent, he basically just says he'd want to be on the receiving end of it. Parlo then caps off the screenshot by addressing how he wouldn't falsely accuse Dupe of, which somehow proves he wouldn't want to open when that point was never made by anybody at all. And Parlo had already previously checked with us if the only concern me and the fellow YouTuber had with the whole thing was the CNC fetish stuff slash being fetishized. In debate that's known as a straw man fallacy, where one attacks a fabricated claim from the opposing person to distract from the actual point. It is an effective and manipulative way of distraction and making yourself look good. I sounded like a nerd with the in debate that's I know, I'm sorry. But yeah, that was basically it for the response. Other stuff he sent was pretty much filler. I don't even know how Parlo's boat even flew right past me at the time. I guess it was me barely being awake when I saw the group chat, but at least I know the truth now. Just a note, he has never addressed the CNC thing publicly. If anything, he lied about addressing it because after our interaction he put out a video in which he states that he debunked the entire document, putting up his video that lacked to address the CNC stuff on the screen as a receipt, which is crazy to me.
Mr. Red was the original person who made the false document on me, which was completely debunked.
Hey Parlo, you knew you didn't debunk or hell even address the entire document as you claimed. What's up with that? And that's not the end of it, come and hear this. Exactly a month later after the GC, I was contacted by a 77 associate in a Discord server, a different guy than from before, and one thing he did is he provided me with authentic chat logs of the DMs between Parlo and Dupe. The first thing I did is I dug deep into the chat logs, seeing if I could find anything more regarding Parlo having a CNC fetish that wasn't presented in the document. And I discovered another interaction between the two where they talked about their fetishes and where Dupe, along with listing other taboos like BDSM and being restrained, which Parlo was just okay with, spells out the CNC acronym completely, which in my opinion makes it impossible for Parlo to have miscoined the term as he claimed to in our conversation in July, because it's right fucking there, the definition is in the name, consensual non-consent. That's about as straightforward as you can get. Not to mention, he said he shared a lot of the same fetishes as Dupe when he listed them out. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here a bit since he doesn't state which specifically, but either way he was at least complicit with Dupe having these types of not okay fetishes. But yeah, I think it's apparent by the other stuff that Parlo has a fetish. For me, it's not even that surprising because it's already no secret that Parlo is a best. For about every major controversy Parlo's been in, it's always tied into how sexually degenerate he is. For example, Homotopia. That happened because he had the bright idea of making a femboy Discord server that allowed minors in it that he did not moderate, which resulted in like minors posting suggestive media and pictures of themselves. Then the Dupe situation, which in my opinion, if he wasn't so focused, he would have been more careful with verifying Dupe's actual age. And the most recent one being the stuff with Internet Adjacent, where he flew him out for which cost him over $1,000 around the time he was begging for GoFundMe donations. For each of those situations, somehow the sentiment of Parlo's a pedophile arised, yet I don't think he was up to predatory activity in these. But those situations prove that he is a big sexual degenerate, hence why I'm not surprised that he has a fetish. I showed all of this to Gwamgo and he offered to put me in a group chat with Parlo where I could try to confront him again.
Do you want me to add him to this group chat so you could confront him again? I mean, this is it's pretty clear that he's tried to avoid this. Do you want to talk to him again about this?
I accepted and was invited to the group chat, but nothing happened out of that because Parlo did not send a message in the group chat after getting 4 notifications from it. 2 from me and another YouTuber being added, 1 from me sending a GIF, and 1 from the other YouTuber leaving. In hindsight, I could have probably sent a more coherent message rather than just a GIF, but I also did not expect Parlo to respond at all, so I just didn't do anything extra. Irregardless, 4 notifications with nothing in return from Parlo. But yeah, boom. That's it. On to the next thing. We were gonna go to the next segment right now, but I'm stupid and I forgot about Parlo being completely complicit with Dupe's attraction to animal genitalia and the like. I literally realized I forgot to talk about this like 3 days before you're seeing this. But yeah, my proof is this and this. Now we can go to the next segment. I'm so sorry. After I thoroughly looked for the entire chat logs from before, I did find other stuff Parlo was compliant with and indulged in. I'll just show you this conversation between the two. It starts out with something about Indians, if I remember correctly, then the conversation quickly transitions to Dupe saying he wouldn't date a black person, referring to them with the hard R on full display, and even recognizing that what he said was straight up racist prior to sending it. Parlo just scoffs at it and goes along, and then the conversation goes back into Indians are stinky and shit like that, with the chef's sprinkle of talking about sucking for some reason. This is just clear-cut racism towards black people and Indians here. I don't think I even need to go in depth about like certain statements made, because I think it's pretty obvious that this is just racism. This is also where gwamgo jumps in to back me on this, because I had posted this on Twitter after Parlo called somebody else a racist, and the post garnered enough attention for it to be seen by gwamgo, who in the replies confirmed the messages were real. I already knew this because I got it from verified chat logs, but gwamgo helped me prove this to the public at the time, and probably right now as well. And that's not even the only thing I found out about Parlo. As I mentioned before, he has a strong prejudice against Muslims. Most notably, he believes in the Great Replacement, or at least his views are common with it, and he's expressed his dissatisfaction with Muslims who joke about the Great Replacement on Twitter. If you're unaware of what that is, it is a debunked white nationalist far-right conspiracy theory, which I'd be more than happy to debunk again using Parlo's statements as examples. I don't want this to take up too much time, so on screen I'm going to show Parlo's statement and then my debunk of it. Parlo ducked responding to this on Twitter, which is where I initially called him out. I made a tweet when he was feeding with on Twitter, and he very obviously ducked making a response to me because he knew he'd look bad at the time where he least needed to.
It was just retarded shit I said with Dupe, and I'm gonna take full accountability for it because I saw those DMs and I'm like, holy shit, they're f***ing bad.
A few days later, he hosted a Discord stage where he acknowledged it and quote-unquote took accountability for it. And by accountability in quotes, I mean briefly mentioning it while listing things he says he takes accountability for.
Being edgy, being down the reform alt-right pipeline back in 2024, and making comments that could be deemed as like bigoted and shit to people.
Then later complaining about the tweet being reposted by because the messages were from the old times of last year.
I mean, you bring up DMs about me and Dupe, like about the Muslim situation from f***ing a year and a half ago.
Very sizable amounts of accountability taken there. Least obvious sarcasm. That's not mentioning that in the first clip I rolled you, that regarding the racism messages, he said those were messages that could be deemed as bigoted by some people. Could.
And making comments that could be deemed as like bigoted and shit to people.
You know, the sentiment that Indians shouldn't exist, and being supportive of your significant other saying they wouldn't date a black person, referring to them with a hard R, you know, stuff like that. That's just for the goof and the gap. It's just crazy to me how he says that like some people may see that as bigoted, yet it was just bigoted.
It's maybe.
Yeah,
It was.
it's a joke, man. It's a joke. You just don't get my humor, man. Yeah.
I don't think it's humor at that point anymore.
It's not. Definitely not clear bigotism. Unfathomable amounts of accountability taken by Parlo. We should all forgive him and forget this ever happened and live happily ever after. He also says something about saying stuff about Arham's religion and quote-unquote stuff like that. I don't know the specifics of that, and I didn't figure I needed to look into it much because it just seems like an extension of the Islamophobia that is already apparent.
Arham has a lot on Parlo about him being Islamophobic.
Of course he glossed over it completely and never mentioned it again, almost like he knows he'd make him look bad, but yeah, you get the memo.
Apologizing to Aram for the things I said about like his religion and stuff like that.
This was done in a Discord stage with not even 500 listeners, and I assure you that like half of the people there did not even have a fraction of an idea of what he was talking about. And this is not the only time he's done something like this. Initially, when he was responding to the Homotopia stuff in 2023, he only posted a highlight clip of his stream on his second channel, which had 2,000 subscribers at the time, marked it as a response and called it a day. Not to mention, the clip was only like 5 minutes long, and that's because he completely glossed over everything and even lied in some instances. For more information on that, you can check out this video by a certain someone who I apparently can't even say the name of without getting a bajillion comments about it, just because I referred viewers to a video of his. I was gonna do a Joker style riddle for you to figure out, but I'll just put up the video on screen and pray to the gods I don't get another bajillion comments about how this person is literally Jeffrey Epstein crossbred with Hitler. But yeah, we're kinda getting off track here. Let's move on to the other stuff segment where it's more fitting.
ちらレーザーになります。
See, that feels better. We're in the respective segment now. Okay, so I want to talk about something that people usually don't take seriously, but I still want to give my own 2 cents on it. It's regarding Parlo making a bunch of "I'm a pedophile" type jokes. I do recognize that this is not indicative of actual pedophilia, but Parlo is a public figure who covers situations of pedophilia and alike, and I feel it's irresponsible of him to be making jokes like this, especially in the position that he is as one of the most popular Roblox commentary YouTubers around. Jokes like that basically trivialize actual pedophilia, even though that may not be the intent, and personally for me it feels concerning that this is one of the top guys that we have on the case when it comes to pedophilia and topics like that. Or had, since I'm pretty sure he's not gonna be making videos ever again. Because his channel was deleted, as most of you know, and I'm happy that it is. Not only because I really don't fucking like him, but also
because Parlo is a severely mentally ill and deranged individual who should not be on YouTube. He should not be given a platform. He needs to get the fuck off the internet and get a real job. If Parlo had gotten the skull transplant, this would have never happened.
that was one kid ago. Shout out to him.
Thank you, Buckid. Appreciate you, man.
But seriously, Parlo's declining mental health over the years has made him significantly unfit to be in the position of a top Roblox commentary YouTuber, as his mental breakdowns have resulted in silly little video clips like this.
You are a bitch who takes black cocks up their ass. You are you are a don't ever say that about me. I literally, all the white which I had to deal with was the outcome of like you who made my life hell.
As I was saying, it's concerning that this is the top guy for cases like that, cause this isn't even just a one-off thing. He's made a ton of these jokes in just Dupe's DMs alone, and I don't see the humor in it. What's the joke? You're a pedophile? Yeah, I'm dying of laughter here. I've cut off contact with other big YouTubers specifically because of jokes like this, and I think it's time we start holding some people accountable for things like this, starting with Parlo. For Parlo himself, I don't think he'll take criticism of this seriously, because in the past he's made a bunch of jokes and just said blatantly anti-Semitic stuff. Yes, I know his mother is Jewish, but it seriously gets to a point. You don't get to spam and use anti-Semitic imagery as well as many other things of that nature without any consequences just because you're part Jewish. This is where the conversation about his actions needs to shift from his background to his behavior, and where his part Jewish identity becomes completely irrelevant to his clear anti-Semitism, because he was certainly not celebrating his Jewish heritage with messages like this. I don't know if he's changed or not since these anti-Semitic messages. I would certainly hope so, but I don't know Parlo personally, so I'm not in a position as to where I can definitively say so. Neither have I seen anything publicly to suggest that is the case. At the end of the day though, Parlo, as a public figure that is one of the faces of the Mount Rushmore of Roblox commentary YouTubers, should be held to a much higher standard, and things like making jokes about pedophilia and being borderline anti-Semitic for some sort of comedic effect just prove that Parlo simply isn't meeting that standard. Making these statements, regardless of intent or background, should immediately disqualify someone from being in a position of respect as a sizable influencer, especially one who covers stuff like grooming and pedophilia on a frequent basis. That's not even mentioning that Parlo doesn't really fucking care about what he does as that sort of YouTuber, because in the Dupe chat logs he is seen saying, quote, "I can't quit YouTube, I need the money, but I want to leave and never come back." He doesn't fucking care. You know what he did after uploading his first Soul-Driven Love defense video? He went into a Roblox YouTuber Discord server that we shared and he showed off the revenue he got from it. The revenue in question was a staggering 680 pounds that he made off of that single video in the first day, which in USD is almost $900. He obviously doesn't fucking care about what he does, whether it's disproving allegations he thinks are false or whether it's something even more serious, and I would love to talk about his shitty content more, but that's a topic for a future video. Anyways, putting Parlo aside, I want to briefly talk about other people who have made quote-unquote exposed videos on Parlo that contain misinformation. I figured it was worth to mention because it had an effect on the production of this video. There have been a ton of people on YouTube lately who have ran massive misinformation campaigns against Parlo. People like Save, for example, who put out the most obvious fake proof in his videos and somehow still had people believing in allegations he put out. For example, the allegations of Parlo having CP, CP. Here's a brief clip of my reaction to Safe's video where he very poorly edited a clip to make it look like Parlo was admitting to having CP. Like, look at this video for example. Like, this is supposed to be some proof that Parlo apparently has child porn saved on his computer or something, but it is so obviously fake. If we go like frame by frame here, when he like opens up the profile, let me go back. Let's look at the corners here. Let's have a look at the corners here. Look, you see the corners right here? That's normal, right? Next frame, why is it cut off like that? Why is it cut off like that? And why is the other side like so weird compared to like its normal thing here? The next frame, it's completely fine again, and then when you go again, you can see it's kind of jagged. I've had enough of like people like expose people on YouTube, bro. This is why nothing ever gets like seriously taken, even made better by the fact that the people who made this video did this for the thumbnail. People like this make my job of covering actual truthful information about Parlo so much harder, because I have no way to stand out amongst these videos that are literally spreading misinformation. Said is far from the only person to have spread misinformation against Parlo, and so this is where I'd like to address my sources for this video to clear any skepticism around the information brought to the table. First thing to address is 77, for which I have already mentioned earlier is where I got the fetish stuff and the chat archives between Parlo and Dupe from. I am not affiliated with the 77 group, and I don't like them. I've already previously critiqued them publicly on Twitter after the leader of the group tried calling out Parlo for simply having an adult friend who plays NSFW games. They made an entire thread about it just to delete it later on, hint, because it was fucking stupid. So I'm already having like a hard time of taking them seriously. But we also don't see eye to eye on whether Parlo is a groomer or not for the Dupe situation. One of the group members who actually gave me the Dupe chat logs wanted to show me evidence that regardless if Parlo knew Dupe's real age or not, that Parlo groomed them either way. The very first piece of evidence they showed me to support that sentiment, I kid you not, was Dupe venting to Parlo when the two were still friends, with Parlo being a normal person who was there for him and didn't just immediately tell Dupe to fuck off. But according to these guys, that's what Parlo should have done. He should have immediately shut that shit down and told Dupe to hit up a suicide hotline.
Parlo essentially like becomes Dupe's like therapist in the relationship, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like instead of giving Dupe some outside resources, Parlo essentially becomes Dupe's like whole emotional emotional center. He'd be like without Parlo, Dupe would not have like anyone to talk about like this type of shit about, you know what I mean?
Earlier in this VC that we were having, this also happened.
Parlo, when he found out he was 12, then dragged him into a group chat and then publicly berated him, calling him a liar and a cheater for the thing he did. So
I mean, he lied to Parlo for a year and 8 months straight.
I get that.
So yeah, kinda dumb. Nivok is also in that group for some reason. I've already spoken my shit about Nivok like half a year ago in this video, and I'm not gonna go over that in detail here, but rest assured he is absolutely not able to handle any situation he puts his hands on. Not to mention he's lied a bunch about YouTubers simply to garner views. He also has homophobic undertones, and he is one of the least creative Roblox YouTubers I've ever seen. For the record, I made this video by myself and to my own volition. There was no outside influence. I say that just to double down on the fact that I'm not associated with people who have made defamatory videos on Parlo. So yeah, I don't like these people and I'm not associated with them. Thanks. That's it for today. I've had enough of this. Roll the fucking Julius Cole clip.
Subscribe to Buckid and Julius Cole.